What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into the CRW podcast, and we've made it. We've made it through another off season. By this time, practice is rolling. We're just weeks away from the first game of the WVU football season. You can smell it in the air. We're back to Mountaineer football, and as is tradition for us, August gets here. It's time to kick off a new season of the podcast, season 8 for us. And the way we always like to do it, of course, is with our season prediction roundtable. We're going to go through this schedule game by game, up with our record predictions for WVU in 2025. And joining me, as always, my two lovely co-hosts. We've got Steven
What's going on, everybody?
and Bradley.
What up, everyone?
All right, gentlemen. So we'll dive into it shortly, but before we get into it, I guess just get you guys' initial thoughts on, the offseason, how this has come together. Obviously, Rich Rod back being a big story, bringing in Zach Alley being a big story, and of course, huge roster turnover, 70 plus transfers. I think we got a lot of talent on this roster personally. I've raved about a lot of these guys, but what are your all's thoughts just kind of going into this before we get into the schedule? Are you excited about the season? How do you feel the offseason shaped up? Just kind of initial feelings about the 2025 season here in the lead up before we dive into the schedule. What do you think, Steven?
I think if you're a Mountaineer fan, I don't think there's any way you can help but to be excited about everything that's happened. I mean, you get Rich Rod back, but not only that, to add to all the nostalgia of that, you get Pat White and Noah Devine back as well. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the coaching staff to like. Along with Zach Alley bringing in such a high caliber defensive coordinator and everything. But the nature of the beast with today's game is within the transfer portal, and that's where I was kind of worried for the longest time. And I mean they've really impressed me with the talent that they've been able to bring in from the transfer portal, and the spots that we've really needed, and to add depth to a lot of places that we needed it as well. I'm still in wait and see mode to see how a lot of that talent meshes together and how the chemistry plays out within those units. And then also, a lot is yet to be seen with eligibility issues, with Jamori and Jeff Weimer and those guys. But I think for the most part, I think we do have a really talented roster that's going to be able to compete in the Big 12. And like I said, I don't think there's I don't know how you're not excited if you're a Mountaineer fan this season.
Yeah, got to be. I mean, excited for the culture change, the culture shift, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Brad? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I'm just approaching the season with ignorant passion, but trying to keep realistic expectations, right? With this Rich Rod coming back, there's really not much. It's going to go one of two ways, right? Like it's either going to burn out hot and quick, or it's going to, light something that could last for a while, right? So this first year especially, why not just be walk into every game thinking that we can whip some ass just because of the hard edge that we're culture that we're trying to set, right? But having the realistic expectation that we've had, 60, 70 turnovers and it's year one under Rich Rod, right? So trying to find some of that grace, but also just walking into it every day, just throwing yourself at it because why not?
Hey, that's right. Good mentality to have. Good mentality to have going into this. And I think personally, if nothing else, like Steven said, how could you not be excited? And I think when we watch the games on Saturday, we're going to have that excitement back. And, we're going to see the guys playing hard. As Rich Rod stated, he's not going to let anybody on the field that's not playing hard. So that in and of itself will be a good change, a positive change for us here throughout Mountaineer Nation. But how much of a positive change will it be? Will it reflect record wise in year one? That's what we're here to find out. Gentlemen, let's get into it. Let's dive into this schedule. Let's break it down game by game, kind of give our predictions here preseason, how we're feeling about the Mountaineers. So, with no further ado, we're going to dive into the 8th annual season prediction roundtable here and begin season 8 of the CRW podcast here on episode 222. And the West Virginia Mountaineers will kick off the season on August 30th against Robert Morris, Gold Rush game. And actually, funny enough, it's our first time ever matching up with Robert Morris, our first time meeting between these two programs, old Bobby Moe and WVU. I think that one thing about this schedule, it's nice to have, an FCS team and a group of 5 team versus playing, multiple Power 5 teams in non-conference play. So I think the non-conference schedule this year shapes up a little bit nicer. And I think right away we see West Virginia come out, get that win, start the Rich Rod era off the right way. And even though it's an FCS opponent, I'm sure this crowd's going to be rocking. It's going to be exciting. Just like Steven said, everyone through Mountaineer Nation should be excited. And I definitely think they'll be here for this game. And I think West Virginia will show up and show out and keep that undefeated streak against the FCS teams alive. And I got them handling Bobby Moe. What do you got, Steven?
Uh, yeah, I'm the same way. I've got them winning the game. I think if we've learned anything, it's really beneficial sometimes to schedule these types of games early on in your schedule for the first one or two games. We learned the hard way the past couple of years what happens when you schedule a Power Four team and try to especially a top caliber one out of the gate. Um, so with the newness of everything, I think this sets up really well for West Virginia, and I like not to disrespect Robert Morris, but this is a warm up game, so I
Well said.
expect nothing less from for West Virginia to get the dub.
Hey, 2 for 2. Brad, you gonna make it 3 for 3?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how you couldn't, and walking into this one's definitely not going to be as exciting as walking into Penn State at home last year. But it's also an easier game, right? Like I'm going to feel a lot better coming out being 1-0 than 0-1 for the first time in a hot minute. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a good feeling for me. I just, things that would impress me this game for a game that shouldn't impress. Keeping it clean, little turnovers, and seeing a defense is playing like it's way better than a non-power 5 school, power 4 school would be what you got to see. But absolutely walking out with the W.
I think that's a great point. I mean, it's been, I don't know, can't remember when's the last time we started 1-0. I mean, what was it, first or second year of the Neil Brown era? I mean, it's been a while for
It's
sure.
been a hot
So
minute, yeah.
yeah, that'll be a positive outcome right there for sure if we can just pull off that win over FCS, which we all think we will. Take down Robert Morris and start the season 1-0, which brings us to our first road game of the year. September 6th, West Virginia heads to Ohio, playing the Ohio Bobcats there in Athens. And Ohio is a team that you can't sleep on. I know it's a group of 5 matchup. You would think, West Virginia should win against a group of 5 team, but Ohio's, snuck up and caught some people. They beat Iowa State recently. They've had 3 straight double-digit win seasons. They are replacing their head coach, though. They had an interim coach for their bowl game, which they won, and he's taken over as their head coach now for this season in Brian Smith. But funny enough, the team that they beat in that bowl game was Jack State. Of course, Rich Rod wasn't there. He'd already came to WVU, but just kind of interesting little storyline there maybe is that Rich Rod getting to beat the team that beat his Jack State team in a bowl game when he wasn't there would be a good storyline here. But I think that this one is one you can't sleep on. You're going on the road. Like I said, it is a group of 5 team. West Virginia probably should have the advantage. And I would be a little bit more worried if they were returning a lot of the things that they had from those 3 straight double-digit win seasons. The fact that they're breaking in a new coach who's only coached 1 game there in the bowl game makes me feel a little bit more optimistic about this one. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this be, closer than people expect. But I yet again think West Virginia is going to come out on top and move to 2-0. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, it's definitely a trap game. It's like you said, it's a group of 5. You're walking in feeling good after probably a stomping, feeling like you can make it 2 for 2. And this is a team that's going to have a little bit of consistency with keeping their Brian Smith in there, and they're going to be able to kind of have still that same scheme and not be changing too much from the pedigree that they already have. So again, I think walking into it and being able to show that Rich Rod's teams are very well disciplined, which is something that we kind of missed under Neil Brown, except for 1 year, and showing that hey, we can come in, handle business, get out of here without ever making it catch your breath would be a big statement.
Yeah, well said. For sure would. Go ahead and get an early road win in the Rich Rod 2.0 era, an early road win in that 2025 season. It'd be great. Steven, you think they can pull it off as well?
I do think that they can pull it off. I do think that it's going to be a little bit closer than what people expect it to be with it being Ohio. I just like Brad mentioned, I think that it's a little bit of a trap game. I mean, we're already talking about the pit game. That's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, of course.
Let's not be naive about that. I mean, that's all people are going to be talking about all the way up till that week. So I'm really hoping that the team doesn't get caught in that kind of a mindset and then caught looking forward to the next week. But we definitely have the talent and the capability to go up there and take care of business in Athens. I'm kind of excited for that game a little bit, just to see how the environment is with their fans and how they respond to, a team like West Virginia coming to Athens to play a game. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. It'll be a fun one for sure.
And it's different. I don't know if I should commend Shane Lyons for Shane Lyons is the one that scheduled this deal, wasn't he?
I believe so. Yeah,
I
as
think it was
far
Shane
as it
Lyons.
was, I think it was.
I don't know if I should commend him or be mad at him for making us go up there, but
up there, yeah. But I guess it's cheaper to do a 2 for 1 than the to just pay them to come in, I guess. So,
True.
maybe that's a little bit, thinking financially, I guess, on that side of things. But as far as, our fans, a lot of them are like, why are we going to play at Ohio? So I understand, them question that as well. But,
I'm not
just
mad
got to
at it.
hope that we have a good result.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it at all. I kind of like the idea. You know what I mean? I think that I wish it would happen kind of more often. I think that would, it would make a lot of more fun atmosphere, more upsets for sure. I think.
Yeah. Well, I think even just
Hopefully that's not
playing
the case
someone
here.
in,
But
our region is nice as well with how crazy
yeah,
spread out conferences are, us being in the Big 12, all that now. It's nice just to play somebody in a state that you border, for once. That's always good.
Yeah.
yeah, true. Nice to get Maryland back on the schedule too.
Hey, I wouldn't be mad about that. We need some revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of revenge, that's a
Yep.
perfect segue into the game that we're all looking forward to. We teased it up a little bit there. September 13th versus the Pittsburgh Panthers, the backyard brawl. It's going to be the Stripe to Stadium game. And, I've said this all offseason, but I got to echo it here as well. It's nothing but fate to me that this game, it falls on 9/13 because it's the last time we play them before a couple year hiatus in the series. And we play them at home on 9/13. And what's the chances that that would be, the one season that Rich Rod comes back as his first season is the last
Mm-hmm.
season we play him before a hiatus, and that game's on 9/13. That's nothing but fate, if you ask me, right there. So I don't know, man. This one's going to be interesting. Pitt returns, all their coaching staff. They return Eli Holstein. They return Desmond Reed at running back. They return a lot on the defensive side. Their defense is being talked up there. It's going to be a hell of an atmosphere. I mean, this has a chance to be an
Yeah.
all-timer up there atmosphere-wise, I think. And it's going to be exciting there on 9/13 in Morgantown. Maybe we'll get College Game Day. I know that's been teased up a little bit. We'll see if that happens. Hopefully so, but it'll definitely be nationally televised there at 3:30, and it's going to be a raucous environment. But can we get it done? Can Rich Rod get that revenge that he so covets and us throughout Mountaineer Nation so covet as well? Stephen, why don't you take this one first?
Even if College Game Day doesn't, which they most likely will, but even if they don't, I expect Pat McAfee to bring his show there. But before I give you my answer, I'm going to ask you guys a question.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if it's the same question I had, because I also had a question that I was curious about.
Without even coaching a game back on the sidelines at WVU, is this a must-win for Rich Rodriguez?
Yes.
Because I believe so. I really strongly believe so. I believe if you lose this game, you not only forever scorn those that were already still not on your side from what happened before, and I'm not including myself because I'm still going to have, I'm still going to have faith if something happens, but I think he'll win. But I don't know. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to win the fan base over if you don't win that game. So I do. I believe
this is Rich Rodriguez's whole season in this one game,
and he knows
to him.
It's
No,
not,
to him. I think
it's
to
not
him
lost on
personally,
him.
I think he is saying this is the only game that matters to me this year. Basically, like I have to win this game.
Yeah, and he's
Like, I think
mentioned
to
it
him,
multiple
that is.
times. Like, I mean, I don't think you come out in all these press conferences and just, I hate Pitt. God, I hate Pitt. You know what I mean? Like, just out of all the press conferences, he wants to beat them more than anything in the world. I think he would take a Pitt win this season specifically over a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think he would.
I think he's going to
with
be
that being
tempted to
said-
just like bite Pat Narduzzi in the throat.
I'm tempted to do that.
Like I could see him.
we
I
all
could see him.
are, yeah.
I could see him trying to throw hands at Pat Narduzzi in center
Oh,
field.
Narducci.
Yeah.
I can't stand that guy, man. I swear, everything he does, I'm just like,
He's the worst.
what do people like about this guy? He just
Yeah.
bitches
They might as well have a
all the
UFC
time.
like square up with them, a chit talking session and everything before the game,
Oh, yeah. It'll be a lot different when they meet up
as opposed
before
to
the
Neil
game
Brown
versus
and Pat
the
Narduzzi.
yeah.
Oh, it's not going to be
a
no
lot
smiling
different.
and handshakes. I'll tell you that.
No,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. He might look at him and just punch him. I don't know. Which I love, you know.
Yeah, I love it. Hard edge, baby. Hard edge.
Yeah, I got West Virginia winning. I don't know what the score differential will be, but yeah, WVU comes out on top. Eat shit, Pitt.
I like it. I like it. Brad?
Yeah, I'll also ask a question because it's not the same question that Steven had. Do you guys think that we have an established quarterback by this point in time? Or do you think that this is the game that maybe decides?
Define established. I know that sounds
Like walking
kinda smart,
into game 3 against Pitt, we're like, hey, Nico Markiel, Jalen Henderson's walking in there, and they are starting this whole game.
this is definitely the guy, number one guy. No, I don't think so.
I
What about
don't
you,
know.
Chris?
I know I would say at least the first couple games will play multiple. Maybe if they feel like they narrowed down, but I still wouldn't be surprised to see us play a couple against Pitt. So I guess I'd have to lean towards no as well. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but Rich
Yeah, I
Rod
was gonna
seems to
say.
think it's a good
I
thing.
think it's
So
a good thing.
yeah,
I mean, why would it be a bad thing? You have two extremely talented quarterbacks, both with, I mean, one's got a great arm, one's got a pretty good arm, one's got great wheels, one's got pretty good wheels. If I'm a coach, I'm playing both of them, especially until one of them shows that they're the clear cut leader. And I mean, you don't have enough of a quality sample size, in my opinion, with Robert Morris in Ohio to be able to tell enough of a difference going into the Big 12 conference that's going to be wide open this year. There is so much talent in this conference this year. You're going to, I mean, especially at that position, you're going to need a quarterback that, or two quarterbacks. You're going to need whatever's going to give you the best chance to win a football game.
Yeah. To that point, give me WVU. As long as we can protect the ball, we don't let it go over. That's what skilled us when we've lost a Pitt. So, yeah, as long as we play clean football, man, give me gold and blue.
yeah,
At home,
and
yeah, at home,
as I say,
At
at
home
home,
especially.
that crowd's going to be a big boost in this one. I feel like for sure.
Mhm.
And I mean, honestly, we got to win this one. We got to even up the series, man. We can't let them have the series advantage before it goes on hiatus for what 2 or 3 seasons, whatever it is. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I think it'll be a good game. To be quite honest, I'd love to see us come out there and just blow their doors off, but I don't think that'll happen. I think it'll be a pretty good game, pretty hotly contested. I hope I'm wrong. Would love to see us just come out there and smack them in the mouth. That'd be great. But I mean, you guys that follow the show, there's no way I'm picking Pitt. So I mean, we're just going 3 for 3 here. West Virginia's pulling off the win in the end. Rich Rod's getting his revenge, and West Virginia's walking out of there on September 13th victorious, and that puts us all at 3-0. Which brings me to ask you guys a question before we move on here to the Big 12, where the Big 12 conference play starts. We talked about the Pitt game, how important it is for Rich Rod there, must win. Here's my next question, though. Does he have to start 3-0? Does he have to start 3-0, or is it already, the fan base, he's back up against it then? Do you think that 3-0 start is pretty much a necessity for Coach Rod?
I don't. If you beat Pitt, I think you buy yourself grace. Like that's just the ultimate truth of it. I think if you go, 1-2, and your 2 losses are not to Pitt, that's a really bad look. But again, I still think even in that scenario, beating Pitt gets you grace. It just does.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that everybody's on board right now, but I think with those 3 games, I don't know. I think you kind of do have to.
I'm
I
kind
don't
of
know
in
if
that camp
have
too.
to.
Because you look at it just from a
It's
general
leaning
fan
more there, though.
perspective, right? General fan perspective, we know Pitt's probably the most important, right? So you can't
Yeah.
lose to Pitt. And then they're also going to look at the schedule, and they're not going to take into account that Ohio's a good group of 5 team or that you're on the road. They're looking at it as you play an FCS team, a group of 5 team, and Pitt. You should win all 3 of those games. And
Yep.
so if you fall in any one of those, I feel like there's some people that are going to be like, oh, man, this was a bad choice. So I think that these first 3 games are really important, more so than
Pivotal.
people
Yeah.
realize, to getting this air off on the right foot.
It's in terms of keeping the fan base, in support of this coaching staff and what they're trying to do. Yeah, I think you're very much right about that. It's 3 very critical games.
Yeah, I just I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't see them as like you have to go 3-0. Like you definitely would be upset because you got to think about like if you lose one of those first 2 games, then what's the attitude walking into Pitt, right? It's a really sour attitude.
Right.
It's already turntable, but again, then you beat Pitt, you're immediately going to buy a lot of people back to your side for the
True.
sake of beating Pitt, right? So you don't have to be 0-3.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you beat Pitt, and then you go on to lose the next 3 Big 12 games, then yeah, you're probably right back in that dumpster. So,
Yeah.
but to say it's a must-win 3-0, I don't think so because beating Pitt is that big.
True. That's a good point as well. It's going to be interesting though, with all that they've invested money wise in the staff, money wise in the roster. People are expected turnarounds. They're expecting results. So we'll see how it shakes out. But the first 3 games there, very interesting. We definitely feel that there's a must win there in the backyard brawl, and we think West Virginia will pull it off and hope that they do so, which will then bring us into conference play. And first conference game of the season this year, West Virginia heads on the road to take on Kansas. the Jayhawks have pretty much the same coaching staff, but they did promote DK McDonald to their sole defensive coordinator after he was co-DC last season. I think the interesting wrinkle to look at with this game, besides Jalen Daniels being back, maybe finally healthy again and having to face him, and that interesting scheme that Kansas tends to employ ever since Kotelnicki was there, they kind of kept bits and pieces with that with offensive coordinator Jim Zabrowski. But to me, what stands out here is Kansas. They spent all year playing at different venues last year because they were building this stadium, and now they have this really nice new stadium, and this is going to be their first home game, their first Big 12 home game, rather, in that new stadium. So the crowd's going to be involved. They're going to be hyped up, and hopefully you're not walking into a buzzsaw, walking into a trap game. But that's what I worry about a little bit here, especially if it does go the way we all have it going here, off to a 3-0 start, and especially riding high after getting that big win that everybody wanted over Pitt. You just played your rival. It's a hard-fought game. You got to go on the road, start conference play against a tricky quarterback there in Jalen Daniels, a tricky system, and a crowd that I think is going to be pretty raucous. So I personally don't have the best feeling about this one. I think West Virginia is probably a better team than Kansas this upcoming season, but also it's about, where on the schedule is this falling? What are the circumstances surrounding it? And I don't like the circumstances surrounding this one personally. So I'm going to say that this is where West Virginia drops their first game, and I got them falling to 3-1 right here personally myself, unfortunately. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those same sentiments. I do think that Kansas right now is a team that can definitely get you gotcha when you're not paying attention. They've shown under, Leipold that they can definitely get it done. So this, to me, is where it's going to start coming. It's easy to get somebody up and going for the Pitt game, right? Coming off that big momentum and that big energy of a game at home where it's an absolutely must-win. Are you going to be able to get that same traction when you have to do the same thing against Kansas, right? And this is going to be a new staff that's going to be trying to look for consistency, and it's hard to get that consistency year one. And I agree with you. I think that this is the first step back for WVU, and I think we drop one at Kansas as well.
Yeah, it's a tough first conference game to start with on the road, I think. Steven, what about you, man? Maybe you can bring some hope into the situation.
Nope, can't do it. Yeah, I was actually gonna, go along with the same sentiment that you mentioned. This being the new stadium after they played, pretty much around the whole state of Kansas last year, and all these different stadiums as their home field last year. I'm sure they're ready. Their fans are ready to get this new stadium open. They're going to be really excited to play, especially this being the first Big 12 opponent there. But besides that, Jayden Daniels, in my opinion, last year was just a really misfortune for him. I think maybe the offense was going through their woes because of, Kotelnicki leaving to go to Penn State. Whatever it was, they just didn't seem like that same Kansas offense that it was the year prior. I'm thinking that they might have that back a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be to the same extent that it was in that first year, but Jayden Daniels going into his last season of college football, I'm sure is going to want to make a statement to NFL scouts. There's just a lot of factors that are involved. I don't know if West Virginia is going to have enough in them to be able to go out there and get the dub on that one. So I got them losing that one.
Well, unfortunately, we're all in agreement on that one as well. We have West Virginia falling in that first Big 12 game to Kansas on the road, which for now has us all with a similar record through 4 games, 3-1 overall, 0-1 in the Big 12. And then you head to back in Morgantown, and you get to take on a team that we've all disparaged a ton here. I mean, we're not the biggest fan of their fan base and all of that. And we were, a little bit happy last year to see them struggle in year one, as we called, the one thing we did all get right here on the CRW was we called Utah's year one struggles in the conference. So they're looking to bounce back from that.
And not only that, but we also called BYU's success.
True, very true. We were pro BYU, very pro BYU. So we did get a couple of things right, as much as we were off on WVU, but I think a lot of people were off on WVU, obviously. So hopefully we're more accurate on WVU this year. But with that being said,
things I was right out on.
Yeah. I had to bring it up, I guess, because there's always going to be somebody in the comments like, but you guys were way off on this, so you may as well just go ahead and beat them to it.
Oh, trust me, we know. We pay.
Go back and look at our spring season roundtables from the Dale Brown era, please.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. I went back and watched last year's just a couple of days ago. Don't do it, fellas. It's
I don't think I
bad.
could bring
I'm
myself
like,
through it.
what was
Flying
I
high.
on, bro? I don't know what I was thinking.
Dude, that
We
coach
were
speak was
sipping the
real.
Kool-Aid like we were in
I picked
But
them
I
to make
mean,
a
we had
playoff spot last year.
every reason to believe so. Garrett Green, they were coming off a 9-3 season. Garrett Green's back, strong weapons, all the X, Y, and Z that we were told. Fastest team ever, 14% body fat. We believed it.
Well, that's what we get
Oh
for
man.
like, every year buying into that hype that Neil Brown would give us in the the
Yeah, it'll never be
preseason
as
about
bad as
this,
what we
that, and the
believed in
third.
Jarrett Nagy, and that's the truth.
Yeah, that's true. That was probably the worst one.
Yeah,
That's probably the
yeah, that's
worst
probably the
one. But
worst one.
what a
Yeah,
difference a year makes, right? What a difference a year makes. If nothing else, we know we're not getting any coach speak anymore or anything else.
No,
So
if anything, these
that's
guys look
nice.
more stacked than I've seen a West Virginia team in a long time.
True.
yeah, that
True.
and Rich Rod don't
They're
care to
getting
say
beefy.
anything, dog. He will
Right.
say whatever's on his mind.
Yeah, it's a pleasant change. It's a pleasant
Yeah,
change.
it is.
But speaking of Utah here, this will be Hall of Fame weekend in Morgantown, September 27th, taking on the Utes, welcoming them into Morgantown. And they've tried to make a couple of changes. The main one being, of course, I mean, they still keep their longtime head coach, Kyle Whittingham. They still keep their same defensive coordinator. But the main thing is they're trying to revamp that offense a little bit. They brought in Jason Beck, who was the offensive coordinator at New Mexico, where they were top 5 in the country in total offensive yards per game. And I think the more interesting part of this to keep an eye on is not only did they get Jason Beck from New Mexico, but his quarterback followed him as well, Devin Dampier, and he's a super explosive quarterback. Last year, he threw for 2,700 yards and ran for 1,100 yards. So he's certainly someone to keep an eye on, and we'll see if that offense can revamp in a hurry. If so, that they could be someone to keep an eye on because we know Utah usually has a solid defense. If they can get an offense to go with it, we'll see what happens. But here they come into Morgantown. And if we are coming off a loss to Kansas, we'll be definitely looking to get back on the winning side of things here in Big 12 play as we all have it. But how do you see this game shaking out here, Brad? I'll let you take this one first. September 27th versus Utah. What do you got?
Yeah, I think that this is a good litmus test for WVU. I think you're getting, like I said, you got a little bit of a shot back to reality, right? Against Kansas, going away and getting, put back a little bit, coming back home and saying, hey, like, are we a good team at this point? You've beaten Pitt and two non opponents, so are we going to be able to get this thing in the right direction or the wrong direction? And I think dropping 2 in a row would really put us going in the wrong direction, like especially where we talked about earlier, the needing momentum of where are we at with already needing must wins in the Rich Rodriguez era, because we all know that it's a short leash, right? But I believe that Rich Rodriguez has got the experience. I think he's got the tools necessary to make sure that his guys are ready for every game, right? And so this to me is going to come down to where are our trenches at that point in time. Where's the lines? What are they looking like? And that's what's really going to determine the last end of our season. And I have faith in what we got going there. So I think West Virginia walks out of here with a W. I think it'll be a close one, but I think it'll be the first real shot to say, hey, okay, let's try to compete in the Big 12.
I like it. And I love what you said there about the trenches being a big part in this one, because that's definitely something that Utah always values is play in the trenches. They always have really good lines on both sides of the football. They may end up having one of the best offensive lines in the conference. So that's definitely going to be a key factor in this game. I think that's something great to bring up there. But I'm going to go along with you, man. I think that West Virginia finds a way to pull this one off as well. I think that West Virginia will have a good defensive line this year, so it could be, a really good matchup here with Utah's offensive line. But the thing to me that gives West Virginia the advantage in this game, I think, is Zach Alley. I think Zach Alley has done some good things against mobile quarterbacks in the past. You look how Oklahoma held down Jalen Milroe in Alabama last year. Their worst game of the season was against Zach Alley in that Oklahoma defense. So I think that, even if Devin Dampier is clicking by this time, if they got that offense rolling, I think that they come into Morgantown, come into a raucous environment. I think Zach Alley calls one of his best games of the season. We know Rich Rod's offense is going to score enough points to get it done. And I think West Virginia bounces back and gets a win over Utah as well. Steven, what about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I think that I also agree with what you said about the defensive line. I think Zach Alley's been vocal about that several times at a lot of the press conferences and interviews that I've seen him in. They've asked him, what's your best unit on the defensive side? He said, without question, defensive line, without question. And that's even before. I don't know if that's including Jamori or if that's if that's assuming that those eligibility issues are still leaving us with other players. But even even if we don't get Jamori, I think defensive line is still going to be a really, really strong unit, so we should be able to handle ourselves up front there. But I think the most important factor of this is, again, it's a home game. When I think back to, the Rich Rodriguez in Morgantown before, that was we had really strong home field advantage because we wanted to protect our house. That was a really important thing about the culture that Rich Rodriguez talks about. If you can go undefeated at home, you have a really good chance of, having a really good season in conference play and then overall in your schedule. So I expect that to be a point-driven home again. So I expect West Virginia to come home and get the W again. I'm in wait and see mode kind of with Utah though. I don't really know what they're going to have. Like you said, they're getting a new quarterback. I think their backfield. They've got one good running back and then one they're in wait and see mode with. So I think their offense is kind of in a toss-up mode on what they're kind of expecting out there as well. So I don't know. That could change as we get into the season and we go do that preview game. But as I see it right now and what I see from Utah, I think we'll get the dub there.
I like it. I like it. We all got the Mountaineers bouncing back in that one, so it's positive for us there, which will then bring us to one of the more interesting games of the season because it's the only Friday night game of the season. And of course, you're having to travel to Provo on a short week there with it, being only 6 days from playing Utah. You got to go out there and play BYU, who, last year had a phenomenal season. A lot of people thought they were going to be in the Big 12 title game, right up until the last month or so when they dropped a couple and just missed out on that, but still a very successful season. Kalani Sitake's done a great job there. They're always very solid on the defensive side. They return a lot of their team. They return their entire coaching staff. The one big change, of course, no more Jake Retzlaff at quarterback. He's transferred to Tulane after the allegations and then, of course, subsequent suspension and then deciding to leave. All of that mess, he ends up at Tulane. So they'll be breaking in a new quarterback. But, of course, you got to think by this time of the season, they'll, definitely know who that is running Roderick's system, and they'll probably be well versed in that. So I think that this is a really tough road game for West Virginia, and especially, for us here in Mountaineer Nation, it's going to be one that probably kicks off at like 10:30 Eastern time. So, take you a nap at some point on Friday before this one.
That is the time. There's no probably about it.
They
is the
announced
time
that
of the
one.
game. Yeah,
That's what I figured. I knew it was going to be late. I didn't know if they'd announced it yet or not, but
crazy.
yeah. So late kick on that one for us here on the Eastern time zone. And I'll be honest, guys, I think it's going to be a tough game. I really do. I think Provo is a really tough place to play. But having said that, Rich Rod's going to pull a shocker. West Virginia goes into BYU, gets a win. And, I mentioned to you guys before we started going through, there was some, I went through and made my schedule predictions, and then there was a couple games I went through there and changed. And I don't know, man, I just said, let's give us a nice Big 12 road win here, one where we surprise somebody. And I picked this one as that game. So I changed it, and I got West Virginia winning this one now. I think West Virginia surprised some people, wins at BYU. Do I have any specific reason? Not really, except for the fact that I think BYU last year, when you watched them, they weren't really super explosive on offense, couldn't score a ton of points. And I think Rich Rod, for one thing we know, he can score points on offense. I think we can outscore those guys, and I trust Zach Alley on defensive enough to hold them, especially with new quarterback and what they're breaking in there. So, call me crazy, but West Virginia goes into Provo and gets a win on October 3rd on that Friday night game. That's what I'm going with. Steven, what about you, man?
Man, I love it. I absolutely love it. I swear, man, me and you, we have like a shared brain sometimes. I think I mentioned that a few times on last year's show, but I swear to God, I want to compare our notes before we do our show next year because I want to see. But it's funny because I went back and I changed this game as well just this morning because I was sitting there thinking about it. I was going back and forth, and I was just like, I don't know about that game. I don't either way because BYU is a lot like Utah for me. I don't really know what to expect, but I do know that we're playing at 10:30 at night Eastern time, so they're going to be used to the time zone. It's going to be really late for us, really late for our fans. Not only are the players going to be, affected by the time zone change, I'm sure whatever fans that travel out there are also going to be affected by that time zone change. So I don't know what kind of factor they're going to be. I got to be honest. I changed this from a W to an L this morning because I don't have a lot of confidence that West Virginia is going to be able to overcome all factors. Now, with that being said, I hope they do, but I don't know. I think if BYU is anything like they were last year, and West Virginia comes out of the gate kind of sluggish for any reason, whether it be time zone change or whether it be because it's a short week or whatever. There's just a lot of factors involved. So I hope that they prove me wrong, obviously, but I do got them. I do got them going out there and losing that game.
Hey, it's understandable. Certainly are a lot of factors that they'll have to overcome there to try and go out there and get the win in Provo. No easy task by any means whatsoever. So, Brad, what about you? You're going to be the tiebreaker here. We got a win, we got a loss. Which side are you falling on?
Well, I definitely am sitting in a podcast with some two intelligent men because I definitely agree with you, Jordan, that something we've missed a lot in the Neil Brown era is getting that win that we didn't expect to get. You know what I mean? And I think that those big surprising wins, and I think that Rich Rod's definitely going to have all the ability in the world to make those kind of wins happen. Where it just didn't feel like Neil Brown could ever step up and win one that he wasn't supposed to necessarily. Um, but ultimately, I agree with Steven. I think that this is going to be a loss. I think going out to BYU on a Friday night, big travel, especially with the team that's not used to it, a coaching staff that's probably not used to it. Um, I think it's going to be the messiest game of the year, probably looking at it, which means it could be an ultra high scoring game or it could just be one of those games where it's a knockdown, drag out game. But ultimately, I just think that when it comes down to games like that, being at home makes it a lot easier. We're just not the team that's home that week.
It's going to be a tough one. I'm glad I changed mine though, so we didn't all pick a loss there. At least I got to
Yeah,
be the silver lining, the ray of optimism, whatever you want to call it there. But it's definitely going to be tough, man. It's definitely going to be tough. I think a lot of people will probably have that one marked down as an L on the schedule, so can't blame you guys at all for that one. I initially did myself, so it's going to be a tough game there, and we'll keep an eye on that one. October 3rd, the Friday night game, the late kick in Provo, be an interesting game to watch there. Which following that, I think another interesting thing to point out here is then we get our first bye week. So West Virginia gets, 6 games into the season, halfway through your season before you get your first bye week. But what I do like about it is you will play back-to-back road games the only time
the
all
only
season, but
time.
it's with a bye
Yep.
week in between. So that's nice for West Virginia there. As after the bye week, we come back on October 18th, travel to Orlando, take on the UCF Knights, which this game, I think, obviously probably the main storyline that'll be talked about all week leading up to this is both of these teams, going back to former coaches that, led
Yeah.
them to greatness. Scott Frost at UCF and, of course, Rich Rod at WVU. Scott Frost brings in Steve Cooper as his OC, who was with him at Nebraska. And he also has Alex Grinch hired as defensive coordinator, who used to be the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. We faced him some in the Big 12 when he was during his time there. So interesting game here. I think a lot of storylines involved. I think UCF is a team that's, I don't know, they're intriguing because you think they got that Florida recruiting base. A lot of people thought that they would be able to take off when they got to the Big 12. It just hasn't happened quite yet. And I think that, maybe that's why they go get a guy like Scott Frost who kind of knows what they need there at UCF, kind of similar to our thinking here at WVU, going and getting a Rich Rod. But I will say, I think West Virginia seems to be a little bit more equipped and a little bit more well suited to win right away, just in my opinion, than UCF with Scott Frost. Not to say they can't, but I think that West Virginia, I think is going to turn it around a little faster, maybe. Just in my opinion, UCF's kind of been struggling a little bit, so I don't really know what I'm going to get from this UCF team. But I think that West Virginia is going to go out there. I think they're going to get another win in the bounce house, man. I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Mountaineers here. I think Rich Rod wins the battle against the rehashed coaches, revamped coaches, whatever you want to call it there. Rich Rod takes down Scott Frost. I got West Virginia winning at UCF. What about you, Stephen?
Yeah. UCF is they kind of had a depleted roster already last year, but they just haven't really gotten a lot from the transfer portal. So I'm like you. I don't really expect them to be able to turn it around quite as fast. It kind of depends a little bit to me what time of the day that this game lands on. If it's a day game, I think West Virginia has much more of a chance of coming out of there with a W. If it's a night game, it might be a little bit closer, but I do expect West Virginia to go down there and win. Which is wild because coming into the Big 12 conference, that was one of the places that I was kind of most scared to play because you hear a lot of teams don't make it out of the bounce house. But UCF just has not um, had that it factor, I guess, the past couple of years that they did for the past decade or so.
Agreed. Agreed. Maybe they'll get there eventually, but they're just not quite looking like they're on that path yet. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens, though. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, the most interesting part has got to be: are we over the bye week blues? Right? Was that just a Neil Brown thing that that we were dealing with? Right? And yeah, going into the bounce house is never the easiest thing, right? And like you said, this is the run back of the coaches of all times. And I do think that Rich Rod is more prepared for this game and coming off of a loss should have his team pointing in the right direction. To me, I think that this is where just the end of the season slog is starting to really hit you. And, with such high turnover and trying to get things figured out, I actually have West Virginia dropping this one. Even though I feel like Rich Rod's more prepared, I think just going into the bounce house, going away, um, is going to get to us. I just think, again, I think by this point in time, maybe those trenches that we've talked about up to this point have been beat up through some good Big 12 competition. And even coming off a bye week, I just don't know if we're, I've just got a feeling on this one. I can't really chalk it up to more than just that, honestly.
Hey, I don't
Yep.
blame you, and I think it goes right to mention those bye week blues because that was huge issue in the Neil Brown regime. So I would love to see us have that corrected here this go around. We'll see what happens there. So all right, that's where we see it against UCF, which moves us to October 25th. West Virginia welcomes TCU in for a homecoming game. And, TCU, they kind of dropped off after that natty appearance, but last year quietly, kind of got right back, into being a really, capable and winning football team. I think they have, one of the better quarterbacks in the conference in Josh Hoover who can really throw that thing around. And they will do that with Kendall Briles and Sonny Dykes and company. I think they return a lot of pieces on the roster, and of course, their entire coaching staff remains intact. And that says something in today's day and age because it's rare. They got Bud Clark, who's a standout on defense. Mentioned Josh Hoover on offense. You go on down the line. This is the homecoming game. I would have liked to have an opponent that's not as quite as tough, I guess, in my opinion, for homecoming. That would have been nice. But having said that, West Virginia has to take on the Horned Frogs. Stephen, let you lead this one off first. Your homecoming on October 25th. How do you see it shaking out?
Before I give this outcome, I do want to say whoever set this schedule up, I like the way that this schedule is set up. I mean, in terms of travel, travel is inevitable. You're going to have to do it anyway. But the way that it's set up, you do like Cruz mentioned earlier. You only have 2 away games, and you got a bye week in between, or you only have 1 back-to-back away game set up, and then you have a bye week in between. The rest of them, home away, home away, home away. It's perfect.
Yep. We could have
With that being
BYU
said,
on a
West Virginia
Saturday,
loses.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. With that being said, I think I don't know. I think being at home, hopefully West Virginia makes it a better game than what I'm hoping it's going to be. But TCU, in my expectation, and this is coming from somebody who picked Oklahoma State to go to the Big 12 championship last year, but I think TCU is going to be one of those top teams in the conference this year. What you mentioned, their quarterback is going to be one of the top, if not the top one in the conference. I don't know if he'll be the one. There's a lot of great, not good, great quarterbacks in this conference this year, guys. And then on top of that, you have TCU. They have one of the best running back duos in the entire conference, besides Jaheim White and Jalen Knighton. I think, honestly speaking, I think it'll be those 2 duos fighting for the top spot in the conference for the better duo. I don't know. I think TCU is just going to be a playoff caliber team this year, and I don't think West Virginia's going to have enough to get that one done. So I've got them getting a nail there too.
I'll go ahead and follow up behind you, Stephen, because I think much like Brad talked about with bye week, troubles. I feel like our homecoming games we haven't won a ton of homecoming games recently either, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that'd be something we'd love to change this year. But I got to agree with you, Stephen. Unfortunately, on this one, I think that TCU to me is one of the teams that's kind of you hear people talk about top teams in the conference. Some people mention them, but not a ton. I think they're flying under the radar a little bit, and they could very well be a team that makes it back to the Big 12 championship game easily. I think they got the roster. I think they've got a coaching staff that's proven they can win. And unfortunately, I do think West Virginia's passing defense will be better this season. I got faith in our defensive backs. I got faith in Zach Alley. But that being said, TCU is going to be explosive on offense, and they're going to be able to hurt you in multiple ways. And I think this could end up being one that maybe is a shootout. But I unfortunately got TCU edging out WVU just slightly because, as Steven said, I think they got a chance to be one of the top teams in the conference this year, and West Virginia may be just a year or 2 away from being that themselves. So I think TCU gets this win too, unfortunately. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, TCU is going to be a tough one. Looking like they're going to be one of the best teams in the Big 12 this year. Super consistency coming through that program. But I've put a lot of emphasis on the home and aways on this one. And I really think that you get Rich Rod at home, in my world, coming off of back-to-back L's, looking for something to come back to and get his team right. I think Rich Rod has his guys ready for this game. I think that he's looking at the season knowing that he has to make something happen, and he has to make something happen now. In my world, he's 4-3, and I think he comes out, makes this a knockdown, drag-out game, and puts that hard edge in. And, like I said earlier, I think we come back to finally a surprising win, something that we get that we haven't had in a while, overcoming that homecoming blues. And getting something turned around and getting the fan base back excited with a big W against TCU at home.
Hey, I love it. I love it. I'd love to see it happen, and I love the optimism there that you bring into that one. At least we get to one ray of light there in Brad's pick, which brings 8 games through the season. And make sure I'm right here, guys, because I know last year I messed this up when I was trying to track it as we went through. So I've got us 6-2, 3-2 in conference. Brad, I've got you at 5-3, 2-3 in conference. And Steven, I got you 5-3, 2-3 in conference as well at this point.
That's correct.
So that's how we see it right now. 8 games through brings us into, arguably, well, I guess it's not arguably, I guess it always is the most important time of the season, November. You'll be playing, important games in November, and West Virginia starts November out on the road. And we were talking revenge earlier, and I think we maybe could bring that up again because last time we were at Houston, we all know how that went down. And so we would love to go there and get some revenge on the road at Houston as well. November 1st, West Virginia heads there to take on the Cougars, and they're breaking in a new offensive coordinator there as well in Slade Nagel, who was an offensive coordinator at Tulane in the past. Also, Willie Fritz is bringing in a new defensive coordinator in Austin Armstrong, who was recently defensive coordinator at Florida. I think Willie Fritz is a really good coach. He's looking to bring in some coordinators to shake things up a little bit, maybe get this, rebuild for him rolling a little bit quicker. But I think, like I said, he's a great coach. I just don't know what to make of them this year, to be honest with you. I really don't. I think Willie Fritz is a coach that can get more wins out of a team than, maybe their roster should get. And they are playing at home, so that's an interesting thing to keep in mind here. But I just think West Virginia should be a better team than Houston this year. Willie Fritz is deeper into his tenure there than Rich Rod, obviously. But I think West Virginia is a better roster, and I think that they're going to go in there. And in my schedule here, I have them coming off a loss to TCU, so they're going to get that taste out of their mouth. They're going to go on, get another road win because, like I said, you're hitting November. This is when you got to start winning games here down the stretch if you want to get yourself into the picture of competing for a Big 12 title, get yourself up into that top half of the conference. These are the important games. And I think West Virginia will want to start November off on the right foot. And I think they'll go in there and do just that. I'm going to give West Virginia the win here against Houston. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, and like I just said last week, I put a lot of emphasis on the home and away, especially with this being Rich Rod's first year in the Big 12 and having to do a lot more travel than usual, and just kind of have to get used to those. And I think by this point in time, I think Rich Rod's licked some of those wounds, and I think he's learned a lot. I think this Houston game gives him a chance to have his most winnable game all the way. I think it could be one of the funnest games out there. I think it should be a high-scoring game, could be really exciting for West Virginia fans, and I think Rich Rod finally gets his first away win in the Big 12 and starts, like you said, building that momentum in the back half of the season in November.
Love it. Steven, what about you, brother?
I'm kind of the same way you are. I don't really know what to expect out of Houston. At this point in the season, it kind of depends on what their season is looking like. Determines whether or not their fans are going to show up, I guess. So if they haven't really had that good of a season, especially and their fans not there, there's no home field advantage. West Virginia's got a really good chance. But I don't expect Houston to be near the top of this conference this year, and hopefully, if West Virginia's in the spot that I expect them to be in at that point in the season, they'll have a lot more figured out, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I.e. the quarterback situation and how we're going to use those and how the offense is, planning to operate with both of those quarterbacks in place. I think we do. I think we go down there and we get the dub. I think I think that'll be a good win for Rich Rodriguez too, to go down there and get our get back for the last time we went down there.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know why we're going down there twice in a row, but it's neither here nor there.
But I do hate this team significantly less now for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I couldn't tell you why.
Not me. Not me. I tell you what, I hate them just the same. If we would have won that game, I'd hate them significantly less now. But
yeah, understandable there.
It still stings, man.
The way that one, yeah, it never will not sting. Will not sting. And just something else we can blame Jordan Lowe.
I remember literally dropping to my knees. I don't think I've. Well, no, I've done that. Like in like desperation.
Pause.
Chill out, Brad. It's not like that. Don't be nasty, okay? Do not be nasty.
Hey, you're the one.
Oh man. Hey, but that's what I said though. It's another Jordan Leslie mistake last time we were there, and we'll have Zach Alley this time. So hopefully have a better result. Have a better result for sure. And then back home, November 8th. I think this is one that a lot of people got circled on the schedule because
I surely have it scheduled.
yeah, definitely. We've not been the
You going,
biggest
Brad?
proponents of Colorado. They kind of proved
No,
us wrong a
big
little bit
underdog.
last season, and maybe that goes for a lot of people, I guess you could say. But I think that this Colorado team this year is going to be super interesting. Obviously, the matchup's interesting. Rich Rod versus Coach Prime itself, sells tickets, but also West Virginia getting to play Colorado for the first time since they came to the Big 12. So a lot of interesting storylines involved here. Colorado has their same staff back, but we know that they're going to have to replace Shedeur Sanders. They're going to have to replace Travis Hunter. Of course, by this time, late November, they'll definitely have answers to those questions, and they'll have places in peace. They brought in Caden Salter from Liberty. They brought in high-ranking quarterback recruit as well. So they definitely have players. It's just going to be. I'm kind of intrigued to see what this team looks like without Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, because I think that's going to be the telltale sign of what the Coach Prime, era is going to continue to be in Colorado. Will he still find ways to win without those guys? Can he get impact players and recruit and still have a solid roster and win games? It's a telltale season for Colorado, if you ask me, and we'll learn a lot about them by the time this game rolls around. But I think here in Morgantown, it's certainly going to be, a raucous environment. But how do you feel this one shakes out, Stephen?
Um, I like this game a lot. I'm thinking Colorado's going to be pretty good this year. I don't know if they're going to be one of the best teams in the conference, but I like Caden Salter. I liked him when he was at Liberty. I think that he is. I mean, when you talk about a dual threat quarterback, he's the embodiment of that. Like he's got great wheels. He's got a great arm, great decision making. So when I heard he was going to Colorado, I was like, shit, that sucks. But I really like him as a quarterback. From what I've seen, they've done really well in the transfer portal in terms of the offensive line. I'm normally not a big fan of that. I'm more of a believer in recruiting your offensive line and letting them develop that chemistry. They seem to be making it work. They made it work last year, but like you said, I don't know how well it's going to be without Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders in year one. I don't know. I think West Virginia has a good chance to get possibly a signature win for Rich Rodriguez in his, since he's been back anyway. So I don't know. I got West Virginia getting a dub, and it possibly being a signature win.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it.
They're doing.
I can see it definitely. And the good thing about it too is you're going to have, much like we talked about with some other games on the schedule, mainly the backyard brawl. This will be another one where you'll be, a national story. I think you got multiple of those. Probably the backyard brawl, probably the game against UCF where it's Scott Frost and Rich Rod, and then here Coach Prime and Rich Rod will probably be a national story as well. Especially if both teams have good records at this point, like I think they could. And like you said, if they do, it's a signature win in November for Rich Rod. And I'm agree with you. I think West Virginia goes out, gets that signature win. I like Zach Alley's, ability to scheme up defenses and hopefully hold that Colorado offense a little bit. Being at home, we get that crowd boosting us a little bit, and I think we outscore them in the end. West Virginia gets the win against Colorado in November as well. I'll agree with you there, Stephen. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, what a fun game. Seriously, I mean, Coach Prime coming to play Rich Rod at his home. You got to wonder what that meeting's going to look like. Is it going to be nice and cordial? Is it going to be all business? I mean, looking at these two people, I think it's going to be an all business meeting, right? I'm sure they'll make show a hug or something like that, but I think it's going to be all business after that. But yeah, I think at this point in time, I think Rich Rod's really got his mojo going. I think he's got good things working. He's got him off 2 wins, getting his first away win. And I think if you give Rich Rodriguez a reason to get more excited about a game like Coach Prime coming in, I think that just guarantees the W at home even more. So yeah, I have WVU coming out with the big W here against Colorado and really starting to get some momentum in the back half.
I like it. I like it. So, I mean, honestly, right now, at this point, a couple things we can go ahead and say is that we all definitely have West Virginia hitting the over on the wins line on DraftKings and other places, which I think is 5.5. Because at this point, Brad and Steven have 7 wins. I have 8 wins for WVU here with 2 games remaining. So 2 games left. I have West Virginia 8-2, 5-2 in conference. Brad and Steven both have West Virginia 7-3 and 4-3 in conference. Before we get these last 2 games, that makes me want to ask a question here because there's something Rich Rod could accomplish here in year one that Neil Brown never did throughout 6 seasons. and that's be ranked in the AP top 25. So, I mean, if we're sitting here, 7-3 in your all's predictions, 8-2 in mine, I mean, you think we're going to get ranked throughout this season? Just as a bonus question here for our season prediction roundtable.
I think it depends. I really do. I think in terms of the ranking system, I think that West Virginia more often than not gets shafted until it's just undeniable, and then it just seems like we've bitched and bitched and bitched about it for so many weeks that it's it's the only thing people talk about. So that's the only thing the team's focused on. So then they out for whatever reason they falter as soon as they get ranked. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of factors. It depends on what other teams are up there with similar records. If there's a lot of other teams in the top 25 with similar records to WVU, probably not, unfortunately, which is ludicrous to say, but just
I don't know.
going
I don't
with
know
what history says.
I was gonna say it might be later, but I think it'll happen. I think it's going to happen. I think that I'm not
By
going
the
to
end
say
of the
it's
season, I do.
Yeah, I would definitely say in your 8-win season, I definitely think we're probably top.
Yeah, which that would be good right there. That'd be another selling point right there. Mountaineer Nation could get behind. Hey, through 6 years, this last coach, we weren't ranked in the AP poll once. We were ranked in the coaches poll. I think once or twice. I know at least once, but never made
Like
it in the top
23.
25 in the AP poll. And if bring in a new staff and you do it in year one, you're off on the right foot for sure. I think so. That's probably something to keep an eye on throughout the 2025 season a little bit. Brad, you got any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think probably in what I'm looking at right now, they'll probably be close. I mean, beating TCU if they're ranked as high as they could be, and then stringing together 2 wins after that, I think would at least have them in the top 30, right? And with the only real bad loss being to UCF, really, maybe we could get up in there. But I think if you say like you lose to Pitt, but you beat UCF, I think we're probably worse off for where at that point in time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true there too. It's kind of interesting. Just I guess it depends on like Steven said, where are these other teams winning? Are you playing any other? Are these ranked teams that you're playing like TCU very well could be? If some of these other teams, if you beat a ranked team or two, I think definitely is more of a possibility than not. So we'll see. But there's something interesting that came to mind. We can keep an eye on as we hit our final two games here. Which next up, November 15th, West Virginia heads on the road to take on Arizona State. Another long trek for the Mountaineers. They had to go to Provo. They got to go to Arizona State. And I think I'll lead this one off first because by my money, this is the toughest game on the schedule. I think this is the toughest game on the schedule. I think Arizona State, we saw what they did last year, being picked last, winning the conference, going to the college football playoff, should have beat Texas. Some bad officiating in that game, if I'm being honest, or they probably would have won, but that's neither here nor there. I'll digress on that.
Yep.
I got Arizona State as my best team in the Big 12 here coming into this season. I know they lose Cam Scattaboo, and that hurts, but they do have some really good running backs. They returned. They've also brought in Udo, the running back there from Army. We were talking earlier about really good quarterbacks. There may be none better than Sam Levitt at Arizona State, especially as young as he is. What he did, last year being a redshirt freshman and then sophomore. And so I think that he's really good. And then I think they're getting back, in my opinion, what's probably the best receiver in the conference in Jorden Tyson, who was injured, through that conference championship and CFP run. So I think they have the best quarterback receiver duo in the conference. I think they've got enough at the running back position to maybe replace Cam Scatterbo even if it's by committee. And so I think they're going to be a really good team yet again this year. Obviously, Kenny Dillingham has proven to be a really good coach, turning it around as quickly as he have after the mess he inherited from Herm Edwards. So all that to say, it's going to be tough for West Virginia to get a win here, in my opinion. And I got them dropping on the road at Arizona State in the penultimate game of the season, unfortunately. Steven, what do you got?
Yeah, I got them losing that game too. I don't know. I don't think that Arizona. I don't think that I have them quite as high up on a pedestal as you do this year. I think that it's going to be extremely hard, obviously, to replace the pieces that they lose. You lose Cam Scattaboo, obviously, to the NFL. He was your main piece, but they also lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball as well. So I expect them to still be a good football team. I don't know if they're going to be quite as good as they were last year. Frankly speaking, I think that team this year is going to be Kansas State. I think that their quarterback is primed and ready. He's only looked like he's gotten better all of last season. They spanked the crap out of WVU. So I think that they're going to be a better team, but I digress. I think that the way that this one shapes up, going out to Arizona State and that kind of environment, with them still having a pretty good season, I don't see us going out there and getting the dub at that point in the year, especially if we're in the same position as we usually are at that point in the year, and we're fighting, depth chart bug and dealing with some depth issues at certain positions, which hopefully we don't. I'm hoping we have enough depth at plenty of units to not have to worry about that. But I go by history most of the time. Y'all know that. So unfortunately, I
Yeah.
got them getting a nail there.
Yeah, and history does state by this time we may be playing backups at some position. Hopefully, it's nothing key or anything, but you get late in the season, depth definitely is a concern. So, we'll see what happens there. But Steven, I got taking an L. I got him taking an L. Brad, what about you, man? Tough game at Arizona State. See it any differently?
Yeah, Mountaineer fans aren't liking us this week. I just don't see it happening. I do think Arizona State's going to be a much tougher team in the Big 12. We did string together three tough wins before this, including one away win. But I just think when you're going up against a team like Arizona State, which has an absolutely raucous atmosphere, and you don't have as much. I'm not gonna say as much reason to get up for this game, but like Steven said, this is late season woes. You may have just been knocked out of Big 12 contention. Like players at this point in time are going to be looking at, are they staying, are they going, bowl games, what's that kind of look like? And I think under year one, it's just too much. So I do see us dropping this game away at Arizona State.
A tough team. Arizona State's going to be a good team this year, and of course, going to play there makes it even a little bit more difficult there. So we don't have the best feeling about this one, and we'll see what shakes out there late November. We'd love to be wrong about it, but unfortunately, we got us all dropping that one to Arizona State. Which following that game, West Virginia gets another bye week, their final bye week of the season, before they play their final game of the season back in Morgantown on November 29th against Texas Tech. And of course, this will be senior day, and maybe revenge is the theme of this season because my goodness, was that one of the worst performances I've seen in quite some time to wrap up the season against Texas Tech last year. So, you'd love to get that bad taste out of your mouth and at least, perform better in this game against Texas Tech than you did last season, which, it's not going to take much of an effort to be able to do better than last year. But of course, you would like to keep it close. I think Texas Tech is a super interesting team. They've brought in, they've invested money in their program. They've invested it in
28
their
million.
staff. Yeah, they've invested it in the roster. Arguably, they've definitely spent the most of anyone in our conference, and they're right up there spending more than pretty much anyone in the nation, right up there with some others, man. They got Cody Campbell, they got that oil money, and they're trying to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Sheil Wood, who was Houston's DC last year, paid him good to get him away from Houston. They've got Mac Leftwich, who they brought in from Texas State, who turned them into a superior offense after they had struggled for decades on offense there. So, they spent money on the staff, and we know they've spent money on this roster to go along with what they return, Baron Morton and company, and they've brought in some absolute studs in the transfer portal, in the recruiting hall, everything. David Bailey, one of the best edge rushers. You mentioned him right up there with Jamori Robinson. So I think Texas Tech is going to have a good team. But here's the thing. You can go out and spend all that money, but that doesn't necessarily equate to wins. In theory, sure, it should. But by this point, we'll know what type of team Texas Tech is, if that's paid off for them or not. Because by their standards, they should be playing this game, hopefully for a spot to go to the Big 12 title game with the money they've invested. That's what their plan is. Now, will that be the case? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I think it's interesting to look at it that way because let's say it is. Let's say Texas Tech is riding high. They're having an excellent season, and they have to come into Morgantown after WVU has a bye week on senior day for their final game of the year. And if in year one with Rich Rod, if we're not able to compete for a conference title, but we're having a successful season, what better way to end it than to play spoiler to the team that absolutely destroyed us last year and just show, hey, this culture change is absolutely shifted. This is a hard edge team. We have a hard edge mentality. Last year, you guys kicked our ass up and down the field. This year, you guys are trying to come in and go to a Big 12 title game. And guess what? We're going to show you what hard edge is all about. And we're going to get a win in Morgantown on senior day against a team that may be better than us, maybe has more talent than us. But that's what we do under Rich Rod. We outperform teams and we play harder than teams that have more talent than us. And West Virginia gets a win on senior day over Texas Tech. That's what I'm calling right here. That's my pick. West Virginia finishes the year 9-3 overall, 6-3 in my prediction here. Huge year in year one, in my opinion, if we pull off 9 wins. Am I drinking the Kool-Aid? I always am. And I got the golden blue glasses on. I always do. I'm keeping it optimistic, but it's possible. Like Steven said, I like the way the schedule shapes up. This can be a really tough game, but I'm picking West Virginia to win it. What about you, Brad?
I'm buying what you're selling, Jorden. I'm right there with you. I think that this is where Rich Rodriguez has got to shine, right? He comes out and he says, "Hey, I'm going to do go 8-4 and in my first year here and show you that I'm here to play business and come out with a successful season, right? And I think getting Texas Tech all the way from Lubbock out to Morgantown at the end of November, where it might be a little chilly and they're not used to it, all plays in our favor, right? It all plays to that tough grit football, that hard edge, and I just think that we have that in spades, right, with this team, and we should have that in spades with this team for what we're selling. So I'm right there with you. I think it turns out on our side. I think we get a big W at the end of the season against Texas Tech, and though it may not, put us into the Big 12 picture, but playing spoiler would be hella fun. But I'm right there with you. Even if Texas Tech isn't in that position, I think getting a W over them at the end of the season would be huge, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, it'd be a huge game, and it'd be a awesome end to the season. The fan base would be, I think ending the year on a high note. So there's something to be said about that for sure, especially, in year one. So, whether it's this game or whether it's, a bowl game or something, that I think that would be big for sure. But Stephen, what about you? Final game of the season, senior day against a Texas Tech team that spent a lot of money to build themselves up. How do you see it shaking out?
I just, we mentioned the top teams in the conference earlier. I fully expect Texas Tech, with the money that they've spent, to be there. Not a guarantee that money is going to translate it into talent and to be, the loaded roster that they want it to. But whenever you're looking at those top 12 playoff teams that made the playoff last year, 10 of those teams were the top 10 spenders on the transfer portal, last year. So I mean, it's just really hard to, imagine that not being successful for a school that's from Texas at that. With that being said, there's no way. I think West Virginia goes out there and they get that dub that day because Rich Rodriguez, he doesn't lose in the late season. He's got a hard edge, and we're going to spot that damn ball, and we're going to go out there and we're going to get our revenge on the Red Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way we're losing that football game, fellas. No way.
No chance.
If you believe for a second that I thought Rich Rodriguez was going to lose that game, you're crazy. Okay.
That's right, hard edge, baby.
And then I'll give you one better. We're going to the Pop-Tart Bowl, and we're playing.
I would like that.
We're playing some piss poor squad, and we're going to beat it. We're going to beat them too.
I love it. All right, so there's the regular season. That's the way that we all have predicted it here on our season prediction roundtable. Which the funny thing about this is I've got us 9-3, 6-3 in conference. Brad and Steven both have us 8-4, 5-4 in conference. And if I wouldn't have changed my thing this morning, we would have all had us 8-4, 5-4 in conference. If I wouldn't have changed,
which is funny because if I wouldn't have
hilarious.
changed mine, it would have been 7-5.
We'd all.
But
been
I was
different.
like,
So
"There's no way." The other game that I changed was Colorado. I had us beating BYU and losing to Colorado, and I flopped those two this morning.
Yeah, that's what I changed the BYU one from a loss to a win, or I would have had us 8-4 as well. So, by our account here, we're all looking, somewhere between the 7 to 9 win range, which I think would be, a good start to the Rich Rod 2.0 era. You get off on the right foot, and then you launch yourself into the stratosphere from there on out and just go up from there. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping to see. But I think all in all, it would be a very successful first season with any of the records here that we've talked about, and hopefully it shakes out that way, or perhaps even better. You never know. We were talking about the way this schedule shapes up, and I think we kind of all like it for the most part. And I think that West Virginia has a chance to have a good season. I definitely think they're going to prove Vegas wrong, and a lot of people that think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the conference wrong, for sure, as you can see here by our predictions, which that's a schedule portion. We're going to wrap this up here shortly. But before we do want to talk a couple of player predictions and then a little bit of a Big 12 standings prediction here as well. So let's do that. Let's lead it off here with the WVU Offensive Player of the Year predictions. And I'm going first so no one can take mine because it's going to be Jaheim White. And you guys know it, and I know it, and most of you guys know it. You guys can take it too if you want, because he's going to be the best running back in the conference. I think he's going to be maybe a Doak Walker Award finalist. I'm saying 1,500 plus yards rushing for my man. I think it's going to be special. You guys know I love him anyways. I've raved about him since he was a true freshman. He's been my favorite player. And then now the marriage of him with a Rich Rod offense, I think it's going to be special. So I'm taking Jaheim White before you guys can do it. Sorry.
I mean, that's a good call.
Don't be sorry, because I'm still going to do it. I'm going to tell you something. I went back and forth with it because there's too many questions along the offensive line for me. And I kept going back and forth, and I was like, but it's Jaheim. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's Jaheim. Who cares? And then I went and did some research. Did you guys know or realize that every single year under Rich Rodriguez during his first tenure, except for one of those years, they ranked top 20 nationally in rushing offense. I don't know about you guys, but what that equates to for me is a good offensive line. So if it's one thing that Rich Rodriguez knows how to do, it's run the football. So with those questions in place, it doesn't matter for me. I think Jaheim White runs away with that. I think we're going to have a lot of offensive pieces that we can, play with this year. We're going to have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. It's no secret what Rich Rodriguez can do with offenses. But I think you're right. I think Jaheim, there's no way that you can go with anybody else besides Jaheim, in my opinion. He's just too talented, working with one of the greatest offensive schemers and offensive run schemers of all time in college football. So, yeah, Jaheim White.
For sure. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to watch him in that offense. Brad, what about you, man?
Yeah, I'm going to argue a little bit here. I'm just going to argue a little bit here because I don't necessarily subscribe to the two quarterback pattern that we're subscribing to here. I think somebody is going to submit themselves as the number one, right? I think that throughout the season that's going to happen, and I think that that's just such a massive position that's getting overlooked so much because we have confidence in the pieces around it. Whereas if you get somebody in there like Jalen Henderson really steps it up, or Nico Markio becomes the player that we really think he all could be, they have the pieces around them to become really special. Then you've got a dynamic running back, a few dynamic running backs, and you've actually got a pretty strong wide receiving core that can do it if you can get it to them. And those are all pieces that can help make you shine, right? So I think that without a doubt, Jaheim White can have an amazing season, but I think that that's going to be on the heels of a quarterback that is able to throw that can open him up, right? And talk about players that aren't being expected. Are you more impressed by a player that you didn't expect to come in and be all that, or are you more impressed by a player that you expected that from, right? I don't know if it's the consistency is more impressive or the unexpectations part of it. So to me, the player of the year is probably going to be whoever stands out at quarterback.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that, especially when you look at Jack State last year and Tyler Huff won, conference player of the year there, had a hell of a season. So definitely, if one guy solidifies himself, I could see it happening for sure. Which I think the good thing is West Virginia has skill position talent. It's just the offensive line is kind of the main question here. How would the offensive line gel? If they gel, we brought in some pieces that I really like on that offensive line, but it's just so many transfers, so many new faces. You're going to have, entirely new two deep essentially, that it's just kind of, if that gels right, your offense can be really good, because I like your talent at the skill positions for sure.
Well, and I think that to that point, like if this was labeled something a little bit different to like, most impactful player or, player of most importance, really, man, I'm pointing at Landon Livingston, right? The guy that's going to be taking over the snapping position, right, from one of the few carryovers from the whole entire offensive line from last year, and he did get some snapping experience. But not only is that a guy that has the experience, that's a guy that sat in a team with a bunch of All-Americans, right? Like that's a guy that sat behind a lot of really disciplined linemen. And he saw what it takes to get up to that NFL level. And I think that if he can help cement that attitude and those vibes that were still carried, because you can say what you wanted to, we had good offensive line the last few years. And if he can help keep that mentality and help show that work, right, then keep that offensive line together and solidify himself as a leader, then I think that could be one of the biggest factors for our whole entire team this season, right? And I think a lot of that comes from just, hey, he's went to Big 12 Media Days, which means he's obviously got the respect of the coaches to go out there and show himself. And so, like I said, if he can just help impart some of that dominating Mountaineer front line that we have seen the last few years and get the rest of the team up to that level and help show them what's expected, maybe that is the most impactful player on the team.
Yeah, I think the offensive line. The offensive line, yeah. He's talking Landon Livingston, but I think, in general, the offensive line is probably the most important thing that we need to have gel and get right for us to have the successful season that we're talking about, because we got pieces, but it's just how quickly can they mesh with so many new faces.
Yeah. There's a lot of them I'm excited about, though.
For sure.
Kimo McCannell, coming from LSU, how are you not excited about that one? Walter Youngbear, he's a really talented. Carson Lee, Tykeus Crawford. We got a lot of pieces from the transfer portal that I'm really excited about. Hopefully we can play with and mix in there a little bit. When I say question marks, I just mean unknowns, right? We don't have a large sample size from them to be able to tell what we got. I don't think that they're going to be a bad team.
That's what I was just saying. Like, I think Landon Livingston, having seen Wyatt Milam and Zach Frazier, like these West Virginia guys that really got it, and being able to try to keep that still going, because that is something that, would be a positive if it carried over from the Neil Brown era. Is just that mentality up front, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
that's
I think
what hurt the
Landon
most.
Livingston can help bring those guys together underneath that banner. So hopefully,
Yeah, our entire offensive line is over in Blacksburg now. So
yeah,
Yeah, a
seriously,
good majority of them. Good
yeah, a
majority
lot
of
of
them
them.
for sure. Followed Matt Moore, but I think yeah, definitely. That's the one thing you got to look at on offense. That's the biggest question mark because we know Rich Rod has good schemes. We know we have good running backs. We're absolutely loaded there. Quarterbacks. I like our receivers. The offensive line, if they gel, got a great chance to be successful and prove some people wrong. But I think the unknowns that Stephen mentioned there is why you see outsiders predicting West Virginia so low is because of all those unknowns. I think we feel a little bit more confident because we've researched these guys. We know a little bit more, a little bit more closer to it and can evaluate a little bit more, maybe a little bit better than some guys on the outside. So we feel a little bit more optimistic. But nonetheless, we'll see how it shakes out there. I think the offense will be good. But let's talk defense for a second because that's been
I'm
the
excited about this one.
area of concern, right? Through two different coaching staffs now, since we've came to the Big 12, essentially, defense has kind of been a struggle for us. And I think now, finally, for the first time, we've kind of invested to change that, going outbidding Oklahoma to steal away Zach Alley, making him our most highest paid defensive coordinator ever. So hopefully that pays dividends. I think it will. I really like Zach Alley a lot, and I think we're going to see a huge defensive turnaround and a defense that surprises some people this season. But speaking of that, who on that defense is kind of going to be the standout guy, in your all's opinion, that wins the defensive player of the year? If you had to pick somebody, who do you think that would be? Stephen, why don't you lead this one off first?
Um, first I'll say you said that it's an area of concern. Not for myself. I mean, maybe to a lot of people because we've went through so many years of having so many woes on defense, other than those few shining stars. When I think back to Rich Rodriguez, everybody thinks, "Oh, great run offense." I think defense. We had top 10 ranking nationally defenses for multiple years under Rich Rodriguez before. Now, granted, that was under Jeff Castile, but I mean that's that's under that head coaching umbrella. That's that hard edge mentality. That's what that is to me. I think spot the ball for offense. I think hard edge for defense. Hard edge for everything, but hard edge mostly for defense. That's what kind of the way that I visualize it. So I expect us. I don't know if we're going to have. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're going to have an all elite unit and we're going to go, have 11 All Americans on the field out there. But I think that we're going to be able to be cohesive enough to be a good defensive unit, better than what we've seen in years prior from West Virginia for damn sure. I really believe in Zach Alley. I really believe in the pieces that they've gotten on defense and the way that they're going to be running it in that 3-3-5 stack. I mean, we're going to be able to create pressure, and we're going to be able to be in position to have, like you said earlier, a better secondary. With that being said, like I said earlier, I think our defensive line is going to be our main unit on defense. We're going to have a lot of pieces there. Even if Jamori gains eligibility, which I'm being optimistic and I expect him to. I think Eddie V, man. I think Eddie V is primed for a huge year. I think last year was going to be that year for him, and then he got injured. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to listen to the Three Guys podcast that he went on a few weeks ago. A great listen. You can feel how hungry that young man is to go out there and have a good season. And like I said, but before the injury last year, I think that he was primed and he was looking really good and like he was going to have a good season. I think that's just made him more motivated for this year. So I got Eddie V, man. I think he's going to have a good year.
I like it. And like I said, that goes hand in hand with what Zach Alley mentioned about the defensive line for sure. And I think we got a lot of really talented guys on that defensive line. For me, I went back and forth between a couple because, like you said, the Jamori Robinson eligibility questions concern me. But assuming, let's just say he is going to be eligible, and that's kind of what I went with for this. It's hard for me to pick anyone else. I think that he is, as far as just pure pass rusher like talent on that side of the ball coming off the edge, probably the best we've brought in since Bruce Irvin. Just to be
I
honest
agree.
with you, I mean, racked up a ton of sacks, a defensive conference player of the year, would have been, top 4 or 5 round draft pick if he went to the NFL versus trying to hit the portal and end up at WVU. Just hope he gets eligible so he can wreak havoc this year for the Mountaineers because I think he will wreak a ton of havoc if so. So I got to go Jamori Robinson. Fingers crossed we get to see that happen. Brad, what about you?
Yeah. No, for me, I'm also going to go with Eddie V. I think that that's going to be the heart of the defense right there. If he doesn't get this, then it's because Dante stilled himself, right? He made himself so dynamic that he just got closed down every game because they had to, right? Which makes you an excellent player, right? If they're taking 2 or 3 men to lock you down, then that's opening up to another man or two on your side. So I think that Eddie V is going to just, yeah, I was going to say it's just going to be Eddie V wrecking havoc down there, and I think that he's going to be in a more productive defense than he's ever seen. So yeah, I'm going with Eddie V as well.
I like it. I like it. So, with that being said, I got to shout out my second pick then because I figured one of you guys would take him, and since nobody did, I got to just give a nod to my guy Michael Coates because you know what Michael Coates is, guys.
I knew it. That's who I figured you was going to go with. I swear.
Well, Michael Coates, he's
what
a
is he? What is he? Tell us.
Lockdown corner.
Is he?
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, he's a lockdown corner.
Well, he's
my man.
Jordan just doomed this guy's career.
Hey
man, Michael, if you're watching, I
the
believe in you,
reference.
sir. This is nothing against you. It's go back like 5 years and watch the show, and you'll understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry that Jordan just did that to you.
Inside joke, but no, he really is. He's a good corner, man. I mean, we paid him to not visit Ole Miss and steal him away from the SEC. So I think the secondary should finally not be a weakness this year. I just want to point that out as well.
I had extra superlatives because I didn't know what we were going to cover this year on this show. I had interceptions leader, and I had a shared thing there. It was Jordan Scruggs and Michael Coates.
Hey, 2 good picks. I just saw the PFF ranked them as both 2 of the highest graded returning cornerbacks in the Big 12. I think they were second and third. So
nice.
That's going to be a good duo right there.
Yeah, for me, the defense just feels like question marks, and I have not had the time to grade them out myself. So going with what I know, man. That Eddie V.
Yeah, I feel it. I think Eddie V is going to have a good season. I mean, he's come back off that injury, hungry for his last season. I think it's a good
Unless
pick.
Sonny Redwoods decides to finally make me feel rewarded.
Make you validated.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, man. The nose tackle was a pivotal position on defense the last time that he was here. So I don't know. I'm trying not to equate the defense too much to Rich Rodriguez in terms of how they ran it, because Jeff Castile, he was the coordinator. So I mean, he had the bulk of the control of it. But I find it hard to believe it's going to be that much different.
He's still on staff, so
right, and he's a consultant now. I forget about that.
Yeah, he's coaching the Bandits.
So the nose tackle really might be that position this year.
Yeah, it could be. Could be for sure. All right, a couple more here, guys. We'll go top 3 breakout players for this season. What do you got here, Steven?
I've got one that's
a lot of
really
candidates with so many new faces.
I was going to say you could pick. I mean, from I don't know how many different names here. I went with an obvious
breakout one I know.
Players. Right. One that I think that Cruz is probably definitely going to have on his list. I went with Cam Vaughn. I don't know if you can. For the WVU, it's definitely a breakout player because he did play for us last year. So he was my first one. The second one is Curtis Jones Jr., better known as the Freak of Nature. This man over here. Listen, this is why I want to go first.
It's just reading off my notes again, man.
All right, so I got Curtis Jones Jr. Because he's. I mean, go listen to any press conference from any of the coaches this year, and they'll tell you how much of a freak of nature that kid is. And then for the third one, played for our squad last year, played for Rich Rodriguez in the past, didn't really do a whole lot in my opinion last year. I got Kokora Tarnu.
I like it.
That's your third one, Cruz, I swear.
No, I was waiting. I was like, if he's got the same third one. So me and Steven share 2 of the same 3, if you didn't notice there, because I went Cam Vaughn as well. 805 receiving yards as a redshirt freshman last year, which if you look over the Neil Brown tenure, we didn't have a single receiver reach that in his 6 years. Yeah. And Cam Vaughn did it as a redshirt freshman. So I think he's going to be a star. He knows this offense. He has the same receivers coach. Definitely Cam Vaughn's a prime candidate. I went Curtis Jones Jr. as well. Like Steven said, freak of nature. I mean, this guy's grown, I think, 2 or 3 inches. He's like 6'4", 6'5" now, and he can move. He's going to be a hell of a pass rusher for us as well at that Bandit, and he's young. So cannot wait to see him. In-state guy that's really developed into an absolute stud, it sounds like. Can't wait to see him get on the field this year. And then third, I went with the former Jack State player as well, but I went a different direction. Fred Perry. I think Fred Perry is going to be a fan favorite because he's going to be out there delivering shots the likes people haven't seen since Carl Joseph. And that's what I love about his game. He really is a hard hitter. He's going to lay the wood. May he get a personal foul or 2 this year? Maybe. But, hey, I'll take it. Let's install that hard edge culture. If we get just 1 or 2, as long as it's not a consistent problem, it's okay if we smack somebody in the mouth once or twice like that. And I think Fred Perry is that guy, and he's going to let you know about it. So I like Fred Perry's style. He's definitely a hard edge player. So I'm going Cam Vaughn, Curtis Jones, and Fred Perry. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, so I didn't give you my defensive player, but I'm going to go Jamori for one of my breakout players and say new guy into West Virginia. Probably going to definitely going to stand out. Still going to go the other direction here and say I'm going to gamble on Nico Markiel. He has played some, but I think that he's finally going to evolve, man. I just think it's there. Like I said, I think he's got the weapons around him to where he can provide that needed arm talent, right? And with the talent, like you said, if Cam Vaughn pops off, that's because somebody's throwing to him, right? Like it's because somebody's making those plays. And then like I said, I'm gonna go back. I couldn't give him the offensive, so I'll say Landon Livingston. I think that he's going to have a chance to play some good offensive line football this year. And if our line does well, I think it'll be because of him. I think he'll have that line gelling, and I think he'll be a big part of it. If not, somebody along that line's got to step up. So
yeah, for sure, definitely not a bad thing to pick an offensive lineman there. We're going to
like the big boys.
need somebody to break out there and that whole unit to perform well.
I like to give love to the gut.
Solid picks,
I'm ready to see a depth chart for that soon. Like a legitimate.
It's a lot of position battles that are going to be fun to watch throughout fall camp here for sure.
Yeah.
Which, lastly here, let's just for fun, where does WVU finish in the Big 12 standings? I mean, you guys got them 8-4. I've got them 9-3. So I'll say for me, I think if they go 9-3, 6-3 in conference, I think that's at least a top 5 finish. I think if you have more than 2 conference losses, that's probably going to put you outside the Big 12 title game kind of competition. Where I got them at 6-3, but I think with that record, they could finish 4th or 5th. So I think they got a chance to finish top 5 in conference if they're going the way that I have it going here in the season prediction roundtable. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I don't see us cracking the top 3 first year under Rich Rodriguez. I don't think that's outside of his realm of possibility, right? I don't think his ceiling's outside of the top 3. But I definitely think realistically we're falling in that 4 to 6, 4 to 7 range. Keeping it competitive, but not there.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I like, I think if we make the top half of the conference, 8 or above, that's probably good for a year one. Stephen, what about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm more like 5 to 7th. I put 5th just to kind of give them that extra oomph, but anywhere from 5 to 7th. It depends on how well the other teams in the conference do because you're competing with what records are what at that point. So I don't know. Will 5-4 in conference be good enough to finish 5th in the conference? I don't know. It's probably more along.
Depends on tiebreakers, right? Like it could probably
say it's
be
crazy.
Right.
Yeah, this conference might beat each other up, so it's possible for sure.
Yeah. I put 5th, but anywhere from 5 to 7.
Because you could have 3 or 4 teams that are 5-4.
Yep.
Right.
Easily. Yeah. All right, I like it, gentlemen, and I'm gonna throw one more in here. Didn't throw this one at you in the show notes. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but I think we usually talk about this a little bit in here, so may as well. Big 12 title game predictions. What 2 teams you think are going to be in there? I guess I'll take it first. I'll give you guys a second to think about it since I'm just kind of throwing it at you. But I've talked about one of them already. Arizona State, I think, is going to go ahead and go play for a Big 12 championship, and I think they'll play Kansas State. Stephen talked about them a little bit, really good. If I was to give a top 3, I'd probably go like Arizona State, Kansas State, and Texas Tech. But I think, Baylor is really going to be a good team as well. It's just going to be interesting. I need to look at the schedules for sure to see. But if I'm picking right now, I think Arizona State, Kansas State would be where I'd go. Stephen, what about you?
Oh, man, I didn't think about Baylor until just now, so it's got me kind of second-guessing myself.
I've also got good.
They are going to be good. Dave Aranda really showed me something last year. Being on the hot seat the way that he was and coming out and having an 8-win season the way that that was awesome. They beat the crap out of us, so I hated that. But that impressive job for a coach. But anyway, Baylor might do it. But the teams that I put down was Kansas State and TCU. Like I said, I think Arizona State might take a little bit of a step back. With that Texas Tech team, though, I fully expect the money that they've spent to equate to wins. So they've got a really good chance of being in that game. But I think the 2 best teams that I've seen on paper this offseason, which is never the best 2 teams ever, but it's Kansas State and TCU. So I got those 2.
I like it. Brad, what about you, man?
Yeah, even though I have us beating them, I do think Kansas State TCU is probably right there where I'm at. That or whoever's right now the worst considered in the Big 12 would be a good bet.
That's a good bet lately, yeah.
Whoever's at the bottom, probably throw them in there. But yeah, no, I definitely think Kansas State TCU. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those 2. Probably going to be up there swinging for those fences.
All right. I like it. All right, gentlemen, and with that, I think that pretty much puts another season prediction roundtable in the books, and we are now rolling in season 8 of the CRW podcast. Of course, we'll be back in a couple weeks, preview that game against Robert Morris, give you our preview and predictions episode. And of course, you'll get a preview and predictions and a review and reaction after each game. And that'll be rolling throughout the season. So expect a couple episodes, each week moving forward here. Once we get rolling with that first preview here in a couple of weeks. So it's time, man. It's time for this podcast to roll through here in 2025 for the Rich Rod 2.0 era, and I always love getting it off on the right foot with one of our favorite episodes here of the Season Prediction Roundtable. Appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you watch on YouTube. If you do that, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, help us out with that algorithm, subscribe to the channel. That way you get the videos right in your feed. Shout out to our friends over at WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes as well. Hey, throw your thoughts in the comments. What's your record prediction? We'd love to see those. Throw them in there. And shout out to everyone that listens on the audio side. You can find it on any podcast platform. Leave us a rating there. That helps us out on that side of things as well. So that being said, gentlemen, any plugs, any final thoughts, anything you want to add here before we wrap up?
Man, just appreciative that football is almost a month away. Super stoked.
Yep. Excited the football. I do want to shout out the people, our, I guess, fans, you can call them. This offseason, like we have done this show, the crew said this was season 8. We've done this show for the bulk of the time for, the same size audience. And this offseason, whenever the whole coaching search happened, and I can only, I can give all the credit to Cruz here.
Yeah,
he kept this channel going, and we grew a lot. So to the people that have given this show love and views and everything on any platform or any listens on any platform, we truly do appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate Cruz for keeping this going for as long as we have.
Big shout out Cruz for rolling it.
This is something we started out. We've said this before, but to anybody that's new here and hasn't heard this, we started this as purely just tired of annoying our friends talking about WVU sports. We wanted a way to get that out there, and wanted people that wanted to hear that kind of stuff to hear it. You know what I mean? We did this just the way to do that, and it's grown into, as a Mountaineer fan, one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to experience. We've gotten to meet some of the coolest people. I've gotten recognized at games. I've gotten recognized by people within the administrative staff at WVU. It's hard not to get emotional thinking about that kind of stuff, like growing up being the biggest fan as I am. So, it's cool. I love being a part of this, and I love what it's grown into. And I just wanted to thank you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we really do appreciate you guys. And now Steven's going to get me all emotional here, start off season 8 in the Season Prediction Roundtable. But no, that's really well said, man. I don't think we could end the episode on a better note than that right there for sure. So we'll let that kind of close it out, and we'll look forward to the Robert Morris game and the start of the Rich Rod 2.0 era. Man, it's going to be fun to have that excitement back in Morgantown, and we're super stoked about the season, and we're optimistic, as you can tell, and hopefully you guys all are as well, and hopefully it's even better than we projected here. That'd be great, but I think it's going to be a fun season regardless, and we're certainly looking forward to it here on the CRW. And as Steven said, thank you guys so much, and continue to spread the word to other Mountaineer fans you may know, and we'll be back to chat with you guys again soon as we move through season 8 here in the 2025 season on the CRW podcast. For my co-hosts Steven and Brad, until next time, let's go Mountain.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those